This week on Truth Be Trolled.
I died on Mount Fuji. Brent got rape-caughted.
And my family takes me on a Father's Day death trip.
Come and take a ride.
Guys for me in my kitchen for $30. A 30 rack and a couple of perks.
Some Suboxone.
We bleep out names, can't we? The dozens and the dozens of people who'll be listening to this podcast.
Wanted to ask you, Frank, what does a fucking guy like you do on Father's Day? Because you are a psychopath. You can't sit down for 5 fucking seconds. You can't relax. What is that? The one day of the year?
We got a short podcast. We got a short podcast today.
Oh boy!
Speaking of that, what do I do on Father's Day? You know what? I usually cook and light fires and clean up and take trash out and do all that stuff. Usually, but this year, Karen cooked all the food. She was the one that was on the grill. She did everything. I did, a bunch of other stuff, but that's what I do on Father's Day. I don't have like I'm a servant on Father's Day.
Yes, me
I'm
too.
a servant, and I'm fine. I'm happy with that side of it. I don't have the thing where I gotta make it my day.
I feel like I've sworn myself into servitude pretty intensely lately, and on Father's Day they actually cooked, which I knew they were going to, and then gave me some gifts, like and I was like, this is weird. And I was like, all right, cool. Now I'm going to go back to doing what I want, which is, it's a whole year, like waiting for one day to do what you want. And I do what I want every day. But anyways, like 4:30 rolls around. And let me just preface this by saying I absolutely love my wife, but she's not having us sit around for no reason. And around 4:30, she's like, everybody, don't you want to go for a hike? I'm like, I definitely don't. And she's like, and then she looked dejected. I'm like, all right, we'll go for a hike. I'm going to say this again. I love her. So we get to this unknown place we've never gone to. And it turns out to be like, oh, yeah, this isn't the walk around the lake. This is a fucking hike. We should have brought ropes, those brown boots with the big soles and red laces so you can climb on mountains, pickaxes. We should have brought all that shit. And
a gallon of water each. We brought the dog. This turned into like, all right, I'm looking at my watch like, none of this is making sense. I'm like, where are we on this trail app? And it was very hard to tell how much more mountain ranges we had to climb before we got back. And we made a decision, and I wasn't even making decisions, but I tell you, I was getting a little nervous and heated because the sun in the forest goes down way before the sun goes down anywhere else. And I'm like, we have about an hour. It looks like we have an hour that way, and we know we have 45 minutes that way, and we got to climb that mountain twice because, bro, my daughter who's 12 didn't give a shit. She's like walking like she might have been reading a book walking up this mountain, and I'm telling you, I was like, what? And then my son was like, yeah, oh my god, that was pretty intense. And me and my wife are like, how do we get a fucking helicopter into this place? Like, is that like, do we? I was like, oh my god. So anyways, we turned around and we went back, and it took almost an hour, and the sun was down in the forest. It wasn't quite dark, but it was getting dark, and we poked out of our little place. It was like, happy Father's Day. When you were in the thick of it, did you start looking around for a good place to start to build a shelter?
Well, I was thinking this the whole time once we got to the first fucking, here's the deal. Like, the first part of the mountain was so steep going down, I was like, oh, that's weird. If it's that steep going, how are we going to... We're going to have to go back up.
Hopefully it was a loop.
And then it went down like a little bit, and it went, over and over, and then it went down again like that. I was like, oh no, like to the point like 3 days later, my legs were sore from walking down because you got to like stop yourself from, and then, well, we had to climb those things getting back. Dude, I'm telling you. Anyways, love my family. That's the adventure we went on, and we got home, and I was soaked through my clothes. It was probably like stress test that the doctor would put you on if you wanted to find out if everything was cool for your heart. Like all of that shit.
and I just like dejectedly walked into the shower and took a shower. And I came out. I'm like, feel a little better. I'm going to let it go.
I definitely did not do that. Frankie had a gig that night.
Way more my speed.
Yeah. No, we obviously we had people over, family, and then we cleaned up, and then we had Frankie had to get in the zone, and we went over
when
to
you say
Sonia.
Gig, what do you mean? Like, does that kid wear sunglasses inside everywhere? Because I feel like he either does or should.
He definitely wore sunglasses that night. No, the School of Rock Watertown had their, I would say, spring-summer performance, and Frankie's program was Queen.
Really?
Yeah, he went up and sang a couple of Queen songs.
What?
Yeah, and Tim has a jacket. He has like a replica Freddie jacket he's worn it a bunch of times, and it was here. And I sent him a message like, "Yo, man, you mind if Frankie wears it on stage?" Timmy's like, "Yeah, man." So Frank got up there, put the aviators on. Went up and sung a few tunes. It was good. It was at Sonia. I've never played Sonia before. My father's like, "Frankie, this was a different place. I came over here before." And I was like, "No, Pa, that used to be TT's. TT's. I was like, "Yeah, this place is a lot bigger."
You make him sound like he's a Star Wars figure in the back corner of a bar, like trading space passage for fucking.
Look at those TT's.
Oh, TT's.
So we went over there to, just to watch Frankie put on some, put on the show.
And was it good?
It was good. Yeah. And I mean, those guys do really good. The School of Rock, I like how they put stuff together. It's got to be tough because you're going through and trying to figure out, what songs to do, knowing the age groups and but I mean, they all get in there and start learning the tunes. They all work together, and it's impressive. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Queen's no joke. Even their simple rock tunes are not easy.
Crazy Little Thing Called Love is what Frankie definitely, he got that one. His voice is so much deeper now too. So you listen to his take this year, Mr. Frankie 15, and it sounded really good. It was good. It's good that night. Frankie, you did good.
Good job, Frankie.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, he plays a hell of a lot more gigs than you.
He sure does. He sure does.
That's funny. I heard those kids in here jamming like a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And I'm telling you, they sounded like my high school band that practiced in my basement. And they were even playing the same fucking riffs, same drum beats, jamming like the same songs. I was like, what the fuck kind of time loop am I in here?
Yeah, no.
And then, of course, I looked at the walls like, how could you play anything but that shit in this place?
Those are the kids that will be untouched by AI. They'll keep it real.
Show me where AI touched you.
Can I show you on a doll?
Yeah.
All right.
A digital doll.
Let me show you on a song.
That's
where
fucking
it touched
funny
you.
shit.
You triggered a PTSD memory talking about your hiking story. My brother years ago tricked me into hiking Mount Fuji in Japan.
What?
Yes.
But don't you walk up that from like dead ass in the middle of the city and it just kind of goes right up? That's what it looks like.
It's what it looks like in the photos, but you take a bus through a bit of forest and it brings you at least to the base of the mountain. And he convinced me that it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm like, I don't know, dude. There's it's like one of the most famous mountains in the world, probably for good reason. Besides
it's
being
like
in a lot of
10,000 footer, isn't it? I don't know.
I think it might be closer to 18. I'm not.
What?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
That's crazy because I've been in Colorado where it's like 12, 14 or whatever, and I can't imagine it goes more.
It was intense, but he decided to hike through the night.
What?
So we started at like 7:30, 8 o'clock is when we got to the base of the mountain.
Did you have Sherpas, bro?
There are stations along the way, and you could have a guide, but no, it's a pretty heavily hiked path. It's it's very touristy, but anyways, we got there and it had just the sun had just gone down, and you have to hike a little bit through woods before you really get to the mountain.
Suicide Forest.
We didn't know that. We didn't know that.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, dude. You didn't.
Holy shit.
So we're walking through the woods and we're like, it was like foggy, and it was the silence was deafening. It was the creepiest woods we've ever been. We even said, we're like, yo, these woods are fucking creepy. We didn't know? We had no idea until I think it was years later that one of us learned that it was the Suicide Forest that we hiked through at night with nobody else around. It was awesome. It was super creepy. But my brother was in the Army at the time, and
that
so
explains it.
Yeah, he was fit. I didn't think I was out of shape. We each had, maybe like a 20-pound backpack.
Fuck. Yeah, how did you fare?
Not well.
Yeah, no shit, dude. You just don't climb a mountain.
Does he have hip dysplasia like you?
No, he's built like a tank.
Well, aside from being fit, the air is thinner. It's harder to breathe.
So I don't know, it must have been maybe halfway up, and I started to get super nauseous, and it got worse and worse. And I was with my brother and my friend, our friend Anthony Jarvis, who had no fucking problem, by the way, which was mind blowing. But I started to come apart, like in a way where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And my brother took my backpack and his, and they just waited for me to catch up. And I just remember, I was in and out of consciousness. I was like laying down, throwing up. I remember seeing people, like hikers were like much older Japanese people, blasting past me going, look at this fucking American. And dude, it was raining a little bit. And I passed out for a little bit, came to, and somebody had somehow gotten me into a full fucking rain suit. What? I swear to God. I was so out of it.
Were you taken again?
I was taken. Dude, it was fucking crazy. I thought I was going to die. Somehow made it to the summit. And there were huts up there where they were serving like hot soup. Monks or whatever were up there serving soup. I got some soup in me. Immediately came back to, and we got to watch the sunset. And when you're looking off the top of that mountain, you look down, you're like, oh, that doesn't really seem that far down. And you realize you're looking at the top of the cloud layer. And then you see a break in the clouds and you see the city lights another fucking 10,000 feet below or whatever, how many thousand feet below that. So it looked like a view that you've only ever seen like from an airplane window.
Wow, that's cool.
But I'm standing on ground.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, 100%. I got to see the sunrise from.
I have a very similar situation, and I'll be very brief because I went to Red Rocks to see the Foo Fighters, and I had to climb up those fucking bro. This isn't a joke. That was like one time in my life where I'm like, is this where it happens? At a Foo Fighters show at Red Rocks? I was like, and my friends that I was visiting were in way worse shape than me. And they're like, come on. And they were like huffing it because they lived there and they were like acclimated. And I was like, very similar. I didn't lay down and take a nap because I was so fucked, but it was like, oh, this is getting dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you had said, like when we were traversing this like fucking mountain, and me and my wife were really, really on the edge of like, oh my God. This nerdy looking dude with like he just came hauling ass up past us.
Yeah.
He went up to the top part. He was kind of like he slapped a tree and came running back down. And I was like, me and Melissa looked at each other like, oh, for fuck's sake. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. But you were talking about how rough it is on the way down. I can attest to that.
Yeah. Your quads get smashed.
Dude, it was brutal. I think it took all night. So it took it must have been at least 7 hours.
But you got to use the opposite muscles on the way down.
And then after the sun rises and you've seen it, you shot your load and you're like, oh fuck.
You didn't bring a squirrel suit?
I wished I had, but yeah, going down was fucking brutal.
It's a thing though, man, for sure. People love hiking. Like they want to. I know it's a. Those boots you're talking about with the red laces? I never had those when I was a kid. But
remember those? That's what druggies wore in the 80s when we were kids. It was druggies would wear that.
I don't know. I just I don't know. I never hiking around here. I mean, you hike. I don't know.
I do.
You hike? I don't hike.
All the time.
You do?
All the time.
I don't. Not on purpose.
I do it on purpose a lot. You go to the library
when I was over in the west on the West Coast when we would go to see David when he was living out there. Over there we went. We would go.
That's easy hike.
Hiking.
Yeah,
those I can. I like
the hills. The LA hills.
The hills. Yeah. That I thought it was pretty.
That's
cool.
That's for.
But we have friends that like they take the photo all up there, next to the sign. I'm like, man, those numbers are big.
It's definitely a white people thing.
You think so?
Hiking. Yeah.
I love that silence. That was.
You think so? Oh yeah.
What do you think? It seems like you're
I'm
thinking.
Peruvian. I should be good at it. I should be hiking way up into the Andes.
Yeah, you're from the.
Yeah, you should have your family on your back, and you
Just-
should have a cigarette in your mouth
Dude,
and
it's chewing
on
on
a coca leaf.
Yeah, you're fucking sky people, bro.
Yeah.
explain that one.
Yeah.
No, I do think that it's cool when you're at the top, though. When you finally get all the way up to the top and you look, and that angle, the sight line is.
Have
you
you
can't
been?
get that unless you get up there.
Did you go to Machu Picchu?
I have not actually.
What a fucking travesty.
The times that we would go to Peru, we were kids. To my mother and my father, they were building my mom's parents a house. They were living on a rooftop somewhere in closer to the capital, I think is what it was. And my mother she wasn't down with that. So she's like, we got to go over there. We got to build them a house. So I would go there with David and the family, and somehow we would end up staying there for like 3 months sometimes. I don't know how the hell. Yeah, it was really good to for learning Spanish for sure. Talking to all the kids and. They
make fun of your American accent.
Sure, yeah. They made fun of my American soccer skills. But by the end of the trip, I'd come back here and I was real good. I was like, I was way better than I was when I went there. But we had a house in like Waltham, Peru. It was like 15 to 20 minutes outside of Lima, and it was just a suburb. And it was really nice. It was a nice area, and. That's what we visited.
I bet your brother never got picked on as long as he didn't open his mouth because he looks like an ancient
tree man.
Yeah, he looks like an ancient Mayan.
Yeah, he does. He looks like a click and pop, one click and pop away from a pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely stuck out. Yeah, I went over there, definitely. I looked more and more like the Chucky doll, kind of my buddy, that kind of look. Super red too. My hair was really red, so in the sun, my hair would get more red. So it was definitely me, one pin around a bunch of bowling balls.
That's funny. I can't believe we just talked for like 20 minutes about fucking
all over
mountain
the place.
Climbing, essentially.
Dude, it's good. Those are good stories.
It was giving me anxiety, like in Cliffhanger.
Oh, you want me to cap it off with something that's really treacherous, and the reason that set me off on like why it was a bad idea to do that.
I would have loved that hike, by the way.
You would have, but there was too many unknowns when you have your family and your dog.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Every year, me and my family will rent a house on a lake, Ossipee or Winnipesaukee, whatever. But 2 years ago, we got a Winnipesaukee one, and that lake is massive. And my brother-in-law comes cruising up with a jet ski, and he's like, "Here you go." And I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And I see this island out, like we're in a cove, and I can see this island. I went through a portal because I went down to the island and turned around, and all of a sudden I was like 15 miles away.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was so like after coming around, and I was like,
did you run out of gas?
No. It was fully stocked up. I was the first guy. I like ruined everybody's day. I was gone for like 3 hours in the blazing hot sun. I didn't bring my phone because I was just going to go to that thing back because I didn't really want to ride that day.
When you're like,
dude, you underestimated the distance a little bit.
It was I'm just telling you, if you go to Winnipesaukee and you're not from there, oh boy, like if you're not from the hood, stay the fuck out of the hood. I'm telling you, I went through, but anyways, like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I found like what looked like, a dock and a little marina or whatever. And I said to the guy, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm here. Like I'm supposed to be in this place. He's like, what? He's like, I think if I recall correct, he said 7 miles away, and it might have been 5, but it was like miles. And he's like, listen, and I'm like, oh, I'm not good at memorizing shit like this because he's got like telling me all this shit, and And he's like, I'll go. And he starts up this badass boat. And I'm like, oh, I'm good now. And the thing just started smoking. And it wouldn't go. I'm like, oh no. And he tells me again, he's like,
back.
I go, dude. And after about 45 to an hour, I'm like really using my mind. And all of a sudden I'm just like, is that it? Like, is that my cove? Like I saw something that looked tiny familiar. And I was like, oh my God. And I made it back. And everybody at our house, like the whole family was there. They thought I was dead. I was gone for like 3 hours. Supposed to be like 3 minutes.
They were minutes away from making a call.
My son, bless this kid, he's the best. He's like, he was going to take my drone up to go find me. And I was like, well, first of all, that'd be an absolute impossibility, but thanks, dude. That's a pretty cool thought. And then they were taking out the boat to go find, like, it was getting dire. Not that, here's the thing.
They were looking for your body. They were looking for your body.
No, I didn't have darkness on my side. What I had was that 12 o'clock sun, like, smashing me. And, it's not so terrible that you can't just go into someone's yard or a campground or whatever and be like, hey, I need a phone. But men don't do that, So I was like, I gotta find it.
Yeah, you let it get real bad.
It got bad. Like, try and course correct isn't something I'd recommend. There's a lot to learn, I guess, from this pod. If you're not from the ocean, the water, the forest.
Those go fast too, right? You're doing 20.
Oh, sometimes I was going 50 miles an hour 50. Trying to like get back, which I was probably just racing away from.
Yeah, in the wrong direction. Yeah.
It's once you're spun around, because there's a lot of inlets and islands on Winnipesaukee. It's a massive lake. Yeah. Whew, that was fucked up. Yeah.
I've never been lost on the water.
I don't recommend it. It's not awesome.
Yeah.
If you can avoid going, don't. And if you have to go, just make sure you have your phone in a waterproof bag or whatever. That was my biggest fuck up right there.
I want to be good on boats, man. I'm not. Sucks, dude. Sucks.
You get pukey?
Dude.
I want to go on a boat ride with you.
Dude, you don't.
Watch that lip sweat accumulate.
Frank, you okay? Right? Down to one word answers.
Why, you get seasick?
Oh,
I love it.
He turns gray.
Yeah, dude, you see me, you get sick too, man. I was on a boat with a family, close friends of the family here in Waltham, and I don't know what we were doing, whether we were going over to see a boat or whatever, but we were going to Martha's Vineyard. So like, all right, we're going to go to Martha's Vineyard. I went with my father. So me and my father, we were like, okay, we're going to go. And this family had a few boys, it was like three sons, and there were, 3 or 4 sons that were on the boat. And this boat looked like straight out of Popeye, Brutus, like like
tugboat,
just like that. It was like a little tugboat. I was like, what? And it has the seats, like the steering is up on this sort of peak, where it's just kind of like perched up top. So we get to Martha's Vineyard, I think, fine. If I remember, we got there and it was totally fine. I was like, oh, I'm okay. But then they go,
but you stayed along the coast?
Well, no, they were announcing, oh, there's going to be a storm. Whoever's here, whatever, go back. And they're like, okay, well, we got to get out of here. As soon as we got in, we got to get out. So like, all right, let's go. Everybody start packing everything, boom, boom, boom. So we start going. Everything's fine. And then it starts... And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, all right, I was moving a lot. We're moving here. I was like, all right, I'm just going to calm down. And I just sitting there, and I remember having a bag of potato chips, and I'm just like, I'm just going to, all right, I'm okay. I'm hungry, but I'm going to be all right. So my father's like, this is moving too much. I'm going to go up. I'm going to sit upstairs too. So he goes upstairs, so now I'm like, all right, my father's up there. And I'm, I'm here. And these kids were, we were friends with them, but like during this sort of, oh man, this is kind of getting a little dangerous. Not that we weren't buddies at that point, but everybody's like doing what they do. And I was like, I'm never on a boat. So I'm just kind of with a bag of potato chips wandering. I was like, oh, what do I do? So I was like, oh man, I better go downstairs. I'm going down. So I go down into the,
You lost sight of the horizon.
That was it. I was like, so now I'm just like, my body's getting tossed around. I was like, oh, I'm sick. Right? So I get in the bathroom. I close the door. And I'm like, hold on to the toilet. And I tried my hardest to get it in the bowl, but everything was like just I got it on all sorts of stuff. I just everywhere but inside the toilet. And then I fucking hate throwing up. So I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I opened the door and I just remember just collapsing and laying on my back, looking up, and things just moving.
Oh my God,
and the
so
lights
funny.
and the lights went out, man. The lights, my eyes, I don't know. I just closed my eyes. I was like, all right. And I remember I woke up to like I looked over and it was like a foot. It was one of the eldest son just sitting there. He's like
poking you with a stick.
You're going to fucking clean the bathroom, asshole. And then he walked over me and he walked out and got up to the dock. And I got up and I was like, oh my God. I looked in the bathroom and looked like a potato chip murder scene, crime scene in there.
Dude, not only do I love that, when I go on like a ship on the ocean and that's like I'll be with some friends or whatever and they're the way you are and I'll just be like, ugh. I think it's so funny. And then when I get off the ship, because you're usually on it for the better part of like almost a week or whatever, I'll have that motion with me for like every time 7 to 10 days, and I enjoy it.
You do?
I do.
Yeah, no, I haven't been on a cruise or nothing.
I was on one of those catamarans. You know, they go fast, whatever. In Hawaii, it was a catamaran thing with a bunch of people. I don't know if it was like, it wasn't whale watching, but and the water got pretty rough. I remember I had taken Dramamine because I did get a little sick once for whale watching.
Right.
It's an awful type of nausea, seasick. It's real bad.
You're on a boat. You can't even go anywhere. As soon as you feel nauseous, you can't go to your room.
Dude, half of the boat was puking. Anyway, so I took a bunch of Dramamine for the catamaran thing, and it was really choppy and windy, and I was fine, but a bunch of people started to get sick. I had gone inside the cabin, and I was fucking stuffing my face. The food was awesome. And then I hear a bunch of screams and everyone starts coming in to the cabin, like frantically trying to wipe themselves off because I guess a bunch of people started getting sick up front and the wind just blew it all over everyone, dude. Just vomit sprayed the whole boat.
That's why you don't piss in the wind.
Exactly. Turns out you shouldn't puke in the wind either.
Yeah, dude, that's gnarly.
I shot Damone actually on one of those Boston Booze cruises that goes out in the harbor for like an hour and a half and comes back in. And I was looking through a camera viewfinder for like the better part of the cruise. I saw like, I forget who I was with, but they got seasick. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm even looking through a camera. I'm not getting sick. Sure enough, as soon as we got to the fucking port, got off the boat and just projectiled on the dock.
I played one of those. We played a bunch of those actually. One was with Tree and Sandblack Church.
Dude, I was on that one.
Yeah,
I was there. Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty
saw
badass.
that.
I actually liked it, but it was very hard to stand up and
It was
rock.
choppy.
Dude, it was so hard. But do you remember some dude like died in the middle of like the mosh pit? Do you remember that? They had to stop the show because some dude, like, everyone thought he died, like, or was having a heart attack or whatever. And then after like an uncomfortable amount of time, he's like, Chris Farley jumped up and he's like, I'm good. And it was just so bizarre. But
Yeah,
those were like pretty madhouse.
The
barbecue
rumor was
one?
that somebody went over the side of the boat. That was what was heard first. What was mulling around? It was like somebody jumped off the side. Somebody got thrown off the side of the boat. So everybody's just trying to get to where you were, that were on the outer. You know, the people who weren't crowded in the front. And then finally we were like, oh my God, someone's down.
Dude, these boats were stuffed with Boston hardcore kids, just like trying to fucking kill each other on a boat with like, you know, every couple of feet, just a little chain to stop you from when they disembark. And these guys are like karate kicking each other from like fucking spin kicks and shit. It was pretty funny.
There's definitely a few people went overboard that no one even noticed they were missing.
I remember that cruise, dude. I remember that cruise.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a weird podcast. What a fucking weird one. Not hardly a mention of robots or the moon.
I know.
Well, Karen Reed didn't even come up. No.
Well, I don't know much about that, and I'm willing to learn if you want to talk about it next time.
Yes.
Truth Be True.